And I'll tell you, when my dad was dying, and you always hear reference to this thing called the death rattle. It's like a super famous thing, obviously, in dying circles. But you can't really understand it, I don't think, fully until you experience it. And it's very difficult because it looks and sounds so uncomfortable. Can you explain at what point towards the end of life that kicks in? Are people awake or pretty much comatose at this point when that kicks in? And what is it?
So the death rattle is actually, the real name is called terminal secretions. And what it is, it happens during the actively dying phase, which is the last phase of life, which usually lasts a few days. And the person's usually comatose or fully unconscious. And so you and I are sitting here, anyone listening to this, our body unconsciously is making saliva to keep our mouth moist because that is comfortable for us. And then our body and brain will unconsciously have us swallow all of that saliva that's being made in our mouth, like I just did. At the end of life, the body will still make the saliva to keep our mouths moist for comfort, but it won't have them swallow it. So it's hard to swallow things at the end of life. And usually the muscles and the brain are not working together. So even if it's just a little bit of saliva that's kind of like collecting in the mouth now, and then the mouth is usually open too, because it takes muscles to keep your mouth shut. So at the end of life, you think of the body as being super relaxed. So it's like mouth is hanging open, and the secretions are settling on the tongue. And then with every breath, that wet breath goes over those secretions and it creates like a gurgle noise. And it's really disturbing for people to hear, and people automatically assume it's in their lungs, or they're suffocating, they're choking on it. And the choking part. And that's usually not true. I mean, I suppose every once in a while something like that could happen, but 9.9 times out of 10, it's just a little bit of saliva that's settling there. Now, I think education's the key. There are medications we can give to like decrease those secretions. But one, they don't always work. And two, then the person will have dry mouth because it makes them have a really dry mouth. So I always educate to just turn your loved one. If you just turn them on their side, a lot of times the secretions will come out. Or if you just readjust their bed and put their head up, it sometimes shifts so they won't make that gurgling noise. Now, it'll reaccumulate, so you have to keep doing that over and over again. We don't like to suction like they do in the hospital, because when you do that, it's actually creating more saliva. It like tells the body to keep making more of that saliva when you're suctioning it out. So they are not choking. And how do we know that? We know that because people who are dying are like babies. Babies cannot verbally say what's wrong, but they will be restless, they will moan, they will cry, they will have a certain cry for a certain thing, right? That is how a person dying will be as well. And if they weren't okay, the body would show us. They'd be restless, they'd be moaning, they would be not laying in bed still. They would be moving and showing us.